Greetings and welcome to Fresh Fire International Ministries Wisdom Wednesday. This week's message is there are some things I cannot change. There are some things I cannot change. I'm Pastor Janice Fareed Hardy. It takes a mature person to realize that there are some things he or she cannot change. But that does not mean, that that's the end of the story. It doesn't mean that you're powerless in that situation. In fact, the more that we realize about our position in situations and our position with people, the more powerful we get. The Bible is such a good source to see what people in their best and in their worst situations did, in situations that they could change and situations that they could not change. What were the results for them? What did they learn from life? For example, we're very familiar with Apostle Paul saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's in Philippians 4:13. But there's some wisdom that Paul gave us before he got to that line. There was a build up before he landed there. So just join me for a few moments and let's just travel through Paul's thinking. Now remember, when Paul wrote that letter to the Philippians or that book to the Philippians, remember that he was in prison, that he was in chains, He was in chains, Locked up when he wrote this. When you are in a situation that you cannot change but wish you could, do you reach out and thank the people who've helped you in the past and other situations? Does your mind go to the good things that have happened to you? And in fact, I need to ask myself the same questions, Does my mind go to the good things that have happened to me? Do you begin to even look at the bad things that you've experienced and just smile? Paul did that and so much more when he was in prison for the gospel, writing to the Philippian Christians, In that familiar verse, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things. I've just seen people just roll that verse off their tongue like it was nothing. But there's a lot behind that verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In that verse, Paul was thanking those Christians for thinking about, for praying about, and for even, I will say, finally sending him some financial support as he traveled the non-Jewish countries spreading Jesus' gospel. Through chains and not knowing if he would even be alive over the next few hours or days, his focus zeroed in on those who had thought about him. He sent words of encouragement to them, and he gave them this wisdom. I'm going to be quoting from some verses before that famous Philippians 4:13 verse. In Philippians 4:10, it reads, But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now, at last, your care for me has flourished again. Though you surely did care, but you lacked opportunity. Have you ever needed some type of help, but people did not help you, even if you reached out to them? Did you think that maybe they wanted to help, but for some reason unknown to you, they could not help? Do we give people the benefit of the doubt? Do we give people the grace to not be there for us when we need them? Let me say that again. Do we, in fact, I'm looking in the mirror as I'm saying it, I need to. Do we give people the grace to not be there when we need them? And not automatically accuse them of not caring. It can be hard to do that when we are in a fire that we cannot put out and we reach out to the one or ones that we believe have the fire extinguisher and they don't show up, Paul in prison was grateful in his own fire, in prison. He was grateful for the Philippian Corinthians who at last, and that means finally, and that means they didn't come in the beginning, but at last, he said, at last, your care for me has flourished again. And we don't know how long that at last lasted, Paul was saying that he accepted that although he believed they always cared, that there were reasons they could not help him, or as Paul says, they lacked opportunity. He did not question, why didn't you show up when I called you? Okay, where were you? One of Stevie Wonder's famous songs says, where were you when I needed you? Paul doesn't do that on them. Okay, he just says, I know that you lacked opportunity. Okay, he did not question why they did not show up before or get an attitude about it. Paul just thanked them for their at last. And you know something else? Paul was not so much thanking them, okay, for showing up at last, but he was more so thanking God that whatever they had been going through, that whatever it was, that by God's grace, it was now over for them. Paul was praising God that whatever it was, God had brought them through their situation. He was glad, okay? He was glad that whatever the previous situation had been that had caused them to hold back their hands from him, that it was over for them. He was rejoicing in their victory. Paul gave them the grace and the compassion, even though he was in chains. When you cannot change your situation, are you able to rejoice that someone else's situation is improving? Okay, and this is on the way. We're on the way to Philippians 4:13. But before he got there, he also said in Philippians 4 verses 11 and the first part of verse 12. Let me read that to you. Paul said, not that I speak in regard to need, but I have learned, life has taught me, I have learned that whatever state or situation I am in, to be content. I know how to be abased, have very little, and, okay, how to abound or have overflow. Has life kicked you in the gut or elsewhere enough for you to have finally learned that life is not a straight line, okay? That there are ups and downs, that there are ins and outs, and that is a normal life. Have you accepted yet that the only constants in life, even if you are a Christian, are taxes and death and a bumpy roller coaster ride throughout it all? Paul told the Philippian Christians to never count him out, okay? Don't count me out, because he expects to be free and to be in jail. And he has found contentment in both states. He says, it doesn't matter to me. I found my contentment in both states, okay? He has been, in other words, he's not surprised when the jails of life hit him. Okay, he had been highly honored by some and called everything but a child of God by others. And sometimes it was the same person that did both. He had learned that you will cheer, okay? You will cheer on the mountaintop some days and groan in the valley other days. We cannot base our worth or identity on a current status, or judge anyone else's worth or identity on their current or whatever present status. Sometimes the so-called renegade and rejected in the family or in the neighborhood winds up being the hero, and the one most likely to succeed goes down in flames in the opposite direction. Oh, life is a roller coaster. And through it all, Paul learned to be steady and at peace, or as he says, content. His compass, what he used to direct his life, was not circumstances or environments or the good or bad opinion of others. His compass was Jesus Christ. And he said, I repeat, I have learned, okay, in whatever state I am, to be content. In other words, I'm good. I'm good. Okay? All right. And the end of Philippians, verse 12, 4:12 reads, okay, the end of verse 12 reads, everything, okay, no, let me read this again. Everywhere and in all things, I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer. And that everywhere and all things, it pretty much covers everything that can happen to us in life. And it's full and hungry. It points to points to people as well as goals and even possessions. And if we are really honest, that full and hungry can also refer to our faith, which will at times make us feel like we are flying above the earth, undefeatable. Okay, can't be defeated. And at other times, our faith may really be so low that we feel that we have sunk to the bottom of the basement, wondering, why am I here? Will I ever get up again? This is not the way my life was supposed to be. Paul told the Philippian Christians, and he tells us to be careful of how you rate yourself in your life. Even if you lose the most important person or most important thing in your life, it is not over until God says it's over. If you are still breathing, and if you are watching or hearing this video, you are still breathing, okay? If you are breathing, your every breath is evidence, clear evidence, even if it's on life support. It's clear evidence that God is not through with you yet. Just keep breathing. Paul, even in prison, again, accepted that there are some things that he, even, as a super apostle, there's some things he could not change. Yet, he found a place within himself, a way to remain constant, even as he rode life's roller coaster. And in that place, in his spirit, in his soul, in his body, Paul could master the fullnesses, as I make up words. He could master the fullnesses of life, okay? All right? And he could master the hunger of life. And he could master the aboundedness of life. And he could handle the suffering needs, okay, that pop up in our lives from time to time. He said he could handle it all. And he could reach beyond himself and encourage others and not condemn them for not being on time when he wanted them to be there on time, okay? He learned beyond the particulars of life to be content, all right? He learned to accept who he was on the roller coaster at any given moment, and he learned to accept who others were on their roller coasters of life at any moment. Then, after saying all of this, then and only then, okay, did Paul write the famous line of Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, okay? I'm going to read that verse one more time, but this time I ask you to focus not on the I can, but to hear really, really heavily, to focus on the through Christ. Okay, here we go. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We can only survive the ups and downs, the people, the circumstances, the fullness, the hungers, because Jesus Christ is carrying us through. I'm going to say this. I love that verse, and we have pictures and everything about it, where it shows Jesus, on the beach carrying someone. And when we look behind Jesus and carrying the person, we only see one set of footprints. And so, and they ask, whose footprints are those? Okay. Well, and they said, well, that's when Jesus carried me. Well, guess what? It's always just one set of footprints. It's always just Jesus that's carrying us through, and that's good. Okay, and until we realize that, we will always be on the being yoked, left and right and back and forth by the roller coaster of life. It's always only one footprint. Don't fool yourself, folks. Don't fool yourself. In truth, we are always facing some things that we cannot change, some things that are beyond our control. Yet, like Paul in prison again, we can always claim victory because Jesus will never change on us, but keep us in his unchanging hands. Paul teaches us, okay, that when we become conscious of the fact that there's some things we cannot change, okay? What we also can grab a hold of, get into our minds and our hearts and our spirits, and even in our bodies, okay? That Jesus is our only seatbelt for life's bumpy roller coaster ride, okay? When you can't change it, grab your seatbelt. Hold on to your seatbelt. So thank you for joining us this week. We pray you will join us again next week for the next Wisdom Wednesday. And if you need to reach us, we would love to hear from you. Please check out our website, www.ffiministries.com. Send us a message, a victory report, a prayer request, whatever. Okay, how you doing? All right, www.ffiministries.com. And please share this video with someone. And again, from all of Fresh Fire International Ministries, we thank God for you and God bless you.